How are you?
I'm great.
Why are you laughing?
I don't know.
What's your name?
My name's Darci Lynne.
Okay, and Darcy, who's that?
My name's
There are moments in television history that stop you cold. Moments where you forget you are watching a show, forget the judges, forget the audience, and just sit there with your mouth open wondering if what you just witnessed was real. Darci Lynne Farmer gave the world one of those moments. She was 12 years old. She had a rabbit puppet named Petunia, and she walked onto the biggest talent stage in America and sang with a voice that belonged to no child her age. The crowd lost their minds. The judges hit the golden buzzer. And just like that, a shy girl from Oklahoma became a name the world would not forget. That was 2017. Nearly a decade has passed since that night. So what has happened to Darci Lynne since? Did she follow the path of so many child stars before her, burning brightly for a season and then quietly disappearing? Or did she manage to do something far more difficult? Turn a single, electric television moment into a real, lasting career? The answer is worth telling, because what Darci Lynne has done since her win is not just impressive. It is a masterclass in how to grow up in public without losing yourself. To understand where Darci Lynne is today, you have to go back to where she started. Not the AGT stage, but before it, before the lights and the cameras and the golden buzzer. Darci was not born performing. She was born shy, genuinely deeply shy, the kind of shy that makes a child freeze in social situations, that makes standing in front of people feel less like fun and more like punishment. Her parents watched their daughter struggle with that anxiety and encouraged her to find something that might help. What she found was ventriloquism. She was 10 years old when she picked up her first puppet. What happened next is the kind of thing that only happens once in a generation. She discovered that behind the puppet, the shyness disappeared. The voice she had hidden inside herself had somewhere to go. She practiced obsessively. She trained with purpose. By the time she was 11, she had already appeared on Little Big Shots, the Steve Harvey hosted variety show that spotlights extraordinary young performers. She held her own. She charmed the audience. She showed the world a preview of something special. But nothing quite prepared anyone for what she did on America's Got Talent. Her audition performance of Summertime, sung through her puppet Petunia while maintaining flawless ventriloquial technique, was not just good for a child. It was technically remarkable for any performer of any age. The breath control required to sing with that much power while keeping your lips nearly still is genuinely difficult. The fact that she did it at 12 with a warmth and personality that filled the entire theater is what made the golden buzzer inevitable. She won the season. She took home $1 million. And she became, overnight, one of the most talked about performers in the country. The real question was always going to be, what comes next? Many people assume that winning a show like America's Got Talent is the peak. They imagine that the winner rides the wave for a few months, enjoys the attention, does a few interviews, and then slowly fades as the next season begins and new favorites take over. For most winners, that assumption is not far from the truth. Darci Lynne was determined to be different. Within months of her win, her team began building something more permanent than a television victory. She was offered a Las Vegas headlining opportunity, a credential that most professional entertainers spend years, sometimes decades, working toward. She took it. She performed. And she proved that audiences would show up to see her outside the context of a competition. Then came the touring. In 2018, she launched Darci Lynne and Friends Live, a full national tour that expanded to cover more than 50 cities across the United States. The demand was there. Fans who had watched her on television wanted to see her in person, to be in the same room where the magic happened. The tour was not a small showcase or a limited regional run. It was a serious, professionally managed entertainment product, and it sold more than 100,000 tickets. Total revenue from that first tour exceeded $5 million. Think about that for a moment. A 14-year-old girl who had been shy enough that she needed a puppet to speak in public was now filling theaters across the country and generating numbers that most adult performers would envy. And she was still in school. This is perhaps one of the most quietly impressive aspects of Darci Lynne's post-AGT story. Her team was careful, thoughtful in a way that the entertainment industry is not always known for being, about not overwhelming a young girl with a schedule that would strip her of a normal life. She continued her education. She limited her performance dates to protect her well-being. She did not trade her childhood for visibility. That decision, made early and maintained deliberately, would matter enormously in the years that followed. Winning AGT changed Darci Lynne's relationship with television. She went from being a contestant, someone who needed to impress judges and earn her place each week, to being a guest, someone whose presence was considered an asset to any program that booked her. The shift in status was real, and it showed. In 2018, NBC gave her something that very few reality competition winners ever receive: her own television special. Darci Lynne, My Hometown Christmas, was a one-hour holiday program built entirely around her, featuring singing, ventriloquism, and guest performers. It was not a clip package celebrating her AGT win. It was a full standalone entertainment special that treated her as a headliner in her own right. The program reached more than 9 million households. 9 million households. For a 14-year-old who a year earlier had been terrified to walk into a room full of strangers. She continued to appear in television specials connected to NBC's programming, particularly around the holiday season. Her family-friendly image and her ability to appeal to audiences of all ages made her a natural fit for seasonal broadcasts. She was invited year after year because she delivered. Producers do not keep calling performers who disappoint. Her return to the AGT stage also became a recurring feature of her television story. She did not return as a contestant trying to recapture the lightning. She returned as a guest, as a proven name, as someone the audience was genuinely happy to see again. When she appeared in America's Got Talent, The Champions in 2019, she advanced all the way to the finals as a wild card entry and finished as runner-up. In a competition filled with former winners and celebrated acts from around the world, she held her own. She more than held her own. She also branched out beyond the AGT universe entirely. Talk show appearances, variety program guest spots, interviews that focused not just on where she had been, but on where she was going. These kept her visible and relevant without overexposing her. She appeared on screens often enough to stay in the public conversation, selectively enough to remain someone audiences were genuinely glad to see. One of the most fascinating developments in Darci Lynne's career since her AGT win has been the evolution of her voice. When she auditioned at 12, her vocal quality was already remarkable. But it was the novelty of the combination, the singing, the ventriloquism, the age, that captured people's attention. As she grew older, the novelty factor naturally diminished. What replaced it was something more durable, genuine vocal artistry. Her voice changed as she moved through adolescence, deepening and gaining stability in the middle range. She began to expand her song choices, moving beyond the material she had used in competition and exploring a wider range of musical genres. She started performing vocal segments in her live shows that had nothing to do with puppets, just her voice, and the audience. This was a significant evolution. It meant that her live shows could be evaluated not just as ventriloquism performances, but as vocal concerts, and she could hold that standard confidently. She has performed musical theater standards, classic pop material, and songs that require the kind of sustained, controlled phrasing that can only be developed through years of serious practice. These are not easy genres to work in. They are unforgiving of technical weakness. Her continued success in them speaks to a level of commitment that goes well beyond what winning a television competition would require. In 2022, she released original music, including a single called Push Our Luck. This was a meaningful step, moving from performance interpretation, taking existing songs and delivering them well, to content creation. Writing and recording original material represents a different kind of artistic identity. It announced that Darci Lynne was not simply a very talented performer of other people's music. She had something of her own to say. That same year, she took an acting role in the film A Cowgirl Song, playing a character connected to country music. The role required her to adapt her vocal style to a different genre, to step outside the framework she had built over years of touring and television, and to inhabit a character in a cinematic rather than theatrical context. She did it. She kept expanding. Throughout all of this development, she never abandoned ventriloquism. She did not decide one day that she had outgrown the puppets, that they were a childhood thing she needed to leave behind. Instead, she found ways to integrate her original art form with her growing capabilities. Petunia, Oscar, and Edna remained part of her shows. The balance shifted. Vocal performance claimed more space than it once had. But the puppets stayed because they were not a crutch. They were always an expression of who she genuinely is. There's a version of Darci Lynne's story that could have gone very differently. The entertainment industry has a long and uncomfortable history with child performers. The pressure, the exposure, the sudden wealth, the adult decisions that get made around young people who are not yet equipped to make them. These elements have derailed careers and damaged lives with a regularity that makes the exceptions feel miraculous. When a 12-year-old wins $1 million on national television, the conditions for that kind of damage are all present. What is striking about Darci Lynne's story is how consistently she avoided those pitfalls. She grew up in Oklahoma City, and she stayed there. She did not relocate to Los Angeles or New York, did not embed herself in the full-time entertainment ecosystem that tends to consume young performers. Her family remained involved in her career in a grounded, protective way. Her parents were present. The oversight was real. She maintained her education through her teenage years, which meant that her identity was never reduced to just her career. She was a student. She had a life outside of performance that belonged only to her. When she was not on tour, she was not performing. She was a person. Her public image remained consistent and clean throughout. No scandals, no controversies, no tabloid stories. This sounds simple, but for a young woman growing up in the public eye during her teenage years, it requires active, conscious choices. Her social media presence stayed focused on her work and her projects rather than her personal life. She shared what was relevant. She protected what was private. Religious faith has been a quiet but consistent presence in her background and her self-presentation. She has spoken about her values openly without making them a performance. This grounded sense of identity, knowing who she is beyond the lights and the applause, has clearly contributed to the stability that defines her story. By the time she reached her early 20s, she was a young adult performer with years of professional experience, a substantial net worth estimated between $6 and $8 million, and a reputation that was built on nothing but the quality of her work. That is not a common outcome. That is the result of good decisions made consistently over many years. In 2026, Darci Lynne Farmer is 21 years old. She has been a public figure for nearly half her life. She has performed in more cities than most people visit in a lifetime. She has appeared on national television more times than she can probably count. She has made music, made films, made memories for hundreds of thousands of people who came to her shows looking for something joyful and left having found it. She has also done something that might be the most impressive part of her entire journey. She has navigated the transition from child performer to adult entertainer without losing the audience that loved her when she was young, without betraying the talent that made her famous in the first place, and without the kind of public implosion that this industry has a troubling tendency to produce. She is not dominating the cultural conversation every week. She does not have a #1 hit or a blockbuster film. She is not the biggest name in entertainment, but she is working. She is touring. She is creating. She is respected. And she is doing all of it on her own terms, with her own identity intact. Ventriloquism is still at the center of what she does. In a culture that moves relentlessly toward the next new thing, where yesterday's viral moment is ancient history by tomorrow, she has bet on a centuries-old art form and made that bet pay. She has been credited with bringing ventriloquism back into mainstream consciousness, with reminding audiences that there is something genuinely magical about a person who can give voice to multiple characters, multiple personalities, multiple souls, all at once. She came onto that AGT stage as a shy girl from Oklahoma who needed a rabbit puppet to speak in public. She leaves every stage today as a professional entertainer who has built something lasting. The puppet gave her a voice. She made sure the world got to hear it. That is the story of Darci Lynne Farmer. And if the trajectory of her career says anything,